Well. I think you should give up. I saw. Wait, maybe you should give up. Before I bring him on, I saw that title for Byron Morrison. I'm like, okay, that's intriguing. And he's written so many different books, but this caught my attention. And I had to move him up and say, let's get him in. Let's keep it real, because I need to know where Byron is coming from, thinking about, and what's going on inside his head. So I know he's in the UK. Welcome, Byron.
Hey, thanks for having me on today. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. And if those of you who can't see Byron, you're just listening, there is a big poster in the background that says, maybe you should give up. The book is not out. It's coming out June 27th, and we will dive into that. But before we do, one word, Byron, I ask all my guests. One word, good, bad, or ugly, that pops into your head that describes your past 30 days, and why'd you pick it?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. I'm going to actually go with tough. We're in the middle of this book launch, and it's been such a big roller coaster ride. It's been so much work going into it behind the scenes, and I've loved the process, but it's definitely been a challenge. So I've always tried to make sure in my content and work, I'm not someone who just sugarcoats everything's amazing. It's been such a marathon to get to here. So it's been tough, but it's also been incredibly rewarding as well.
Yeah. All right. I want to dive more into that, because you've written how many books so far?
This is my fourth one.
Is this tougher than the others, or it's the same process?
This one's been a lot tougher. This basically, my first three books were self-published. This one I've gone with a traditional publisher, and it's basically been a 2-year campaign. So from the idea to pitching it, to writing it, to submitting it, and then getting ready to launch in July, by the time it comes out, it'll have been 2 years from start to finish. So it's a little bit surreal to think that we're nearly at the finish line. Especially based on everything that's happened along the way.
Yes, I know. When I wrote my first books, self-publishing wasn't really the way to go. And it took me, 36 rejections and a year and a half to find an agent and a year and a half to find a publisher. And then once I turned it in, I don't know about you, but once you turn it in, is it another year to get it published?
Yeah, I submitted last November. So I think it was about a 10-month turnaround from submission to release.
Okay. Yeah, it's a while. And why did you choose? I'm curious. The first 3 books you self-published, why did you choose to find a publisher?
So the first 3 books was really when I was just paying my dues, building the business. For me, the next one, I really wanted to do a big legacy project. I was looking at the trajectory of my career, and I was like, do you know what? I'm at a point where I want to go to the next level. I want to reach more people. I want to have a bigger impact on the world. I want to start speaking and just having more of an influence. So going with a publisher to help spread that message was the natural next step in that journey.
Yeah. I mean, it can be fun and tough either way you go. I've seen the ups and downs of both. But the biggest question they did ask, my people wanted to know, is ask Byron, does he enjoy the process of writing? That's what they want to know.
It's something that I absolutely love. It's really, when I started this business 10 years ago, my goal was I wanted to be a full-time author. But it's even when I was growing up and I was a kid, I kind of had this vision of I wanted to write, and whether it was music and songs and books, it was always a passion of mine. And I was just very fortunate that I found my path where I've found an avenue where I could write books as a career and pass on what I learned and what I do with clients. So yeah, it's the one thing out of everything that I do that I probably love the most.
Oh, and do you get writer's block ever?
Sometimes. Anyone who's written anything knows what it's like, where you're sat there and it's just it's less about the writer's block, because I know what I want to talk about, but it's looking for the right words and framing. And sometimes you just need to walk away and just think and process it. So, but yeah, it's definitely one of the challenges that come with it. But I find just diving in and getting started and not trying to pressure yourself to get it perfect is really the way to go. It's sometimes you just need to get the ideas down, and then you can go back and formulate them and make them sound better later.
Isn't that the truth? Just get it out there. Just get it out there. Instead of, I remember when I first started, I would keep correcting every sentence, and somebody said, don't do that. Just get it out there and go back, right?
Yeah, that was one of the best strategies I found. of when you are writing, whether it's a chapter or a section, it's just sit down and don't allow yourself to edit along the way. Just get it all out of your head, get it all down, and then you can go back and revise. Because I've made that mistake in the past where you're trying to get every sentence right, and then it just takes forever, and then you lose your train of thought, and it's just really just that's where you get in your own way. So it's just like simplify and just get it down and then go back to it later.
Yeah. All right. So I just want to read this little clip from LinkedIn so we can dive into some of the questions. I help CEOs upgrade their mindset and performance so that they can evolve into the leader they need to become to take their business to the next level. And it says here that you're author of Effective CEO and the CEO in Control. Why, Byron? What got you into this? I mean, were you already in a company, working for a company? Were you a CEO? What made you dive into this specific area?
Yeah, so it's been a really interesting journey, and one that, truth be told, I completely fell into. So if I take you back over a decade, my dad's cancer took me on this journey of transformation. I lost over 50 pounds, turned my health around. And at that time, I wrote my first best-selling book, and I started a business helping people from around the world get their health on track. And as we were growing and scaling and things were going really well, truth be told, I was completely in over my head when it came to running a business. While I was great on the delivery aspect, I didn't know how to lead a team. I didn't know how to handle difficult conversations. I was just got pushed to a point where all the daily firefighting and challenges left me burnt out and exhausted. And I remember just having this feeling of dread where my business was a mental and emotional drain. And at that point, I realized I can either figure out how to solve this or I can throw in the towel. And I spent the next few years learning everything I could about leadership and managing people and dealing with tough conversations and really how to become an effective leader. And at the time, I was working with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners. And naturally, these challenges started coming up in our conversations. And I uncovered that through my own journey, helping them solve it was not only what my superpower was, it was what I love to do. So the next natural evolution of my business and what I'm doing was to help people who are struggling like I was, who started a business, who were great at what they did, but who were over their head when it came to running a company. Because I'm not a business coach. I don't give people strategies or tell them how to grow their business. I put the focus on them and how they're showing up in everything that they do. So that was why it was just a natural evolution, but not one that I intended. It was just something that I fell into along the way.
You kind of just jumped over that you said you lost 50 pounds.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
Let's back up with the health thing, because I did not know about that. So
yeah,
they're going to be like, wait a minute, let's go back there.
Yeah, for most of my life, I kind of struggled with my weight. I was 50 pounds heavier. I was at that time, I was in the corporate world. I was trying to work my way up the ladder. I was incredibly burnt out, and just my health was not a priority or something that was in a good place. And then my dad got cancer. And luckily he pulled through, something I'm eternally grateful for. But that was the realization for me that I had to do something to get my own health under control. So I spent the next few years learning everything I could about nutrition, fitness, changing behaviors, trying to figure out how to get myself on track. Eventually I did, and I saw so many other people struggling like I was. So I took what I learned, and that was the foundation for my first company and book.
Whoa. Well, you look really lean and fit now.
Thank you.
You look amazing. Like, I would never know, you would. So here you were, you did the same thing with the health that you're doing in business. You took what you learned, the strategies you learned, and you wrote a book to help others, so they didn't have to go through it the same way you went through it. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Like, that's been the natural progression. Like, that was how the initial company started. And then as I've progressed, and then I solved my own leadership and CEO problems, and then position onto that. And then it comes up with the new book as well. It's going back to when I was struggling on my own, and I was my own worst enemy, sabotaging everything from my health to my relationships and professional success. And it's brought me to a point where the next legacy project is helping people get out of their own heads. Because I think to uncover that the biggest barrier in the way of most people's success is themselves. It's that sabotaging voice that causes them to overthink, to doubt themselves, to avoid the actions they know they need to take. And that's really where I see myself in helping people break through those so they can get to that next level.
Which I'm going to go right to this next question, because this is one that I got from several different people, and we're going to just make up a name, Billy Bob. So Billy Bob, and I got this 5 times. These are guys in their 30s, and they're stepping into their dad's shoes. And all they keep hearing from the family is like, oh, you got big shoes to fill. You think you're going to be able to do it? And they're starting to second guess themselves. And do you have any advice? Because their dads were very successful. The one I know personally, and he's very talented, but he's like, I'm not my dad. I'm not going to be able to do it exactly like my dad. And what if I do run the business into the ground? Do you have any advice for these people?
Yeah, part of it is you've just got to be a little bit patient with yourself, because they're not their father. Like, they haven't got decades of experience of building the business. And if they put that pressure on themselves from day one to immediately exceed expectations, it's not going to happen. And that's why the guidance I would always give is you've got to dive in. You've got to allow yourself to go with the mentality that you will make mistakes. It is going to take time to figure it out. But when you can balance that awareness with actually putting in the work and figuring it out, that's how you're going to be able to bring a whole load of skills and confidence and ambition to the table. Because if you're someone who's really passionate and driven, you're going to have new ideas and new way of doing things, and that's okay. So instead of trying to be someone else, go in with the intention of, I'm going to become the best version of myself. I'm going to step up and lead this business into the next generation, because things of how they were done 20 years ago is going to be different to today. So you don't want to replicate the same strategies and same way of doing things, because that's not going to work. So you've got to go in and really have that balance of taking the pressure off yourself, because if you keep trying to step up and be someone you're not, that's where the imposter syndrome is going to kick in, and you're not going to actually match it. So yes, have good expectations and push yourself, but also recognize that you have to do you as well.
You know what? I'm highlighting that and putting 4 exclamation marks about, and I think that's a good thing for them to remember. You don't want to do it the same way they did it 20 years ago. Like, it's not relevant. So that's amazing for them to remember, besides the fact that they're not their father.
It's also looking at the blueprint. Like, clearly, if the business is successful, you've got a foundation. You can look at what worked, what you need to double down on, and then you can also take clarity and insights and new market trends, and then figure out, okay, how do we improve this going forward? So it's not like you need to go in and reinvent the wheel. Sometimes I'll just be steering the ship and figuring out, okay, these are the things that are doing well. Let's adapt, and then let's reposition and figure it out along the way.
Yeah, I like that. All right, this young lady, Sally, I'm sure you do, but she still wants to ask. Everyone on my team always says how powerful and confident I am. But inside, I'm always going, are you kidding me? I don't know why they think that. And I second guess every decision I make. Ask Byron if he has other clients similar to me.
Every single one of them. Like, whether it's a founder starting out or a CEO running $1 billion business, the biggest thing that people struggle with is that voice in their head. And we all think that we're alone in feeling this way, that we doubt ourselves and second guess things, but it's natural. It comes with the territory. But what's really important is to understand, is that holding you back to the point that you're paralyzed with fear and not doing anything? Or is it something that you're harnessing and moving forward with regardless? Because one thing I always say to my clients, if you don't have an element of doubt and a little bit of imposter syndrome, you've probably got a little bit comfortable. Like, that's a sign that you're not growing. And that's why it's really about having the awareness. Is it holding you back, or is it something that's just part of what you're doing? Because clearly, if her team is recognizing her greatness and they're being inspired by her, the way that she's going to build her confidence is just to allow herself to dive in, to keep pushing forward and build momentum, and then also slow down and recognize the progress that she's made. Because part of it's also suggesting that she's always focusing on problems and where they're going, and she hasn't taken time to take stock of what she's actually done and the impact that she's made. So it's really about balancing, okay, what's happening? Where are they going with everything else going on?
I just want to make sure and I love what you just said, but I want to make sure I heard you right. If you don't have somewhat of an imposter syndrome, you probably got too comfy in where you are.
Yeah, because it's a sign that you're growing. Because anytime you're pushing to the next level, there's going to be an element of uncertainty. There's going to be stuff that is
I like
unknown. And that's why if you don't have a little bit of doubt there and be like, oh, what's actually going on here? That's a sign that either you're playing it too safe or you might be overlooking things. I actually had this question recently as I was on a different podcast and they were talking to me about this. And they were like, do you have any doubt and imposter syndrome in your own life? And I said to them, yeah, the next step that I'm doing with my own business is we want to launch my speaking career. If you think of someone like a Gary Vaynerchuk or Brendan Bouchard, like that's the level that I want to push to next and where I want to go. But that's for me is uncharted territory. I haven't spoken on stages that big. There's a lot of uncertainty. Like I definitely have some doubts of like, am I cut out for it? But the important thing is I'm pushing forward regardless, because I know that that is part of the transition. And it's just like anyone listening to us, if they're trying to push their next level in their business, you have to understand that that doubt is normal, but it's when it's holding you back and it's stopping you from taking action, that's when it's problematic. But if you figure it out and you be like, okay, why is this coming up for me? Is it because I just haven't done it yet? Am I missing a skill set? Is it because I need more time? Figure out what's going on. And then you know what you need to focus on to feel like you're ready and to take that jump.
I like that. And you're right. I'm thinking every time I've done anything that I haven't done before, my stomach gets in knots. And then I think, okay, well, this is all right. I'm still going to do it. It's not going to hold me back, but it's because I really care about what I'm doing, you know? And I lose sleep sometimes. And I think, but you know, you're going to do well. I don't know. All these years later, Byron, and I do a lot of speaking engagements, I still have trouble sleeping the night before and my stomach still goes in knots.
Yeah. The fact is though that you're facing it, whereas I've seen the other side of this with a lot of people I've worked with where that doubt just becomes paralyzing and they look for all the reasons not to do it and they delay and they procrastinate and they put it off. And that's where it becomes problematic. That's where you really need to figure out, okay, what's going on? Because there's a big difference between having that doubt and doing it anyway and allowing it just to push you to the point that you're overwhelmed and you don't take action. That's really where there's a mental block coming in that we need to address, because if you don't overcome that, that's going to keep you stuck.
You know, I'm going to ask you this question, but it's a little tough one. This young man, he feels he's definitely stuck in his business. He's second guessing himself. Company is successful, but it's not where he wants it to go. And he doesn't know if he should go into therapy because it's something holding him back from when he was a child, or if he should find a coach.
It depends on the situation. Like therapy is fantastic. Like don't want to take anything away from therapy. I know that helps a lot of people. But the one problem with that is it's very focused on the past. It's trying to figure out what you went through and get closure and all of those things. And I find with the clients that I work with, our focus is on the present and what you're going to do about it going forward. Because it sounds like this person, if he's feeling stuck, he needs to figure out what isn't working and what is the plan going to be to actually get to the next level. A lot of the time, it's easy to blame it on the past, whereas actually it's something's going on that's stopping him from moving forward. And I find a lot of the time internally, it's because we're feeling stuck in our current way of operating. And this is why we need to really challenge our mindset and change the way that we think to get to that next level. So it would be very situational dependent. Like with someone like this, I'd have to speak to them to figure out what's going on. But my gut's telling me that if they're not having a trauma and having a lot of deeply ingrained things, it's not a therapy issue. Like therapy is a lot of the time CEOs I work with go when they're really struggling with stress and pressure or things in the past. Like this sounds like it's more of a, you need a coach, whether that's mindset or business or a consultant to figure out, okay, what's going on? What are the new opportunities? And how do you then like really captivate yourself to break through?
Yeah. So Byron, do you work, this young lady wants to know, do you work with CEOs or CFOs that aren't doing well, or only with ones that are doing well to take them to the next level? Because she got put in a situation, family-owned business, and she is, I'm going to quote her, "I have no clue and I'm so lost. I don't even know why they put me in this position."
Yeah, it varies, but it's generally the people who are struggling, because the people who come to me, they're overwhelmed, they're stretched thin, they're feeling burnt out, they're just stuck in the trenches and firefighting. So they're not really getting much of value done. So it's really on my job to come in and help them get it under control so they can be effective and get to the next level. So I do have some who come to me who are doing really well and want to hone their edge and become even better. But generally, it's people who are at a point where they know that they're getting in the way, they're the bottleneck, or they're not performing at the level they need to. And they know if they don't fix it, it's going to directly have a negative impact on the business. So that's really where I come in, and our focus is, okay, what's going on here and how do we get this under control?
So, Byron, when you work with clients right now, is there, like, I saw something that says you have a 90-day program, but is it individually created, or do you start out with a 90-day program?
So what I've done over the last decade is I developed a battle-tested 5-step process. I figured out this is what we need to take someone through to really evolve them into a more effective leader. And there's different metrics and variables and processes we need to implement. How we do that, though, varies on the individual, because it depends where someone comes in, what they're struggling with, the challenges they're facing. So we need to adapt it. So I've got different things I aim to hit with every different client, but the order we do it in depends on the individual. And that's why I start out working with clients on a 12-week basis. And the first 2 weeks, we do exactly the same thing because they're the foundations. And then the rest of it's tailored around them and the stage that they're at. But by the end, we would have hit everything.
Yeah. And is it in a certain industry, or do you work all over?
I work across the board. The reason being is because I'm not a business coach. So it's not my job to come in and give strategies and tell someone how to run their company. Instead, we've put the focus on the individual and how they're showing up in everything that they do.
Okay.
And that's why the industry is kind of irrelevant. Like at this point, I've worked with everything from tech CEOs to people running global production companies, billion-dollar unicorns, like food industries, law firms, because at the end of the day, how you navigate people and deal with problems and stress and burnout is across the board the same issue. So there's some industry someone's in is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. Why I brought you on, I have to know. I want to know everything. Maybe you should give up. I love it. I love the cover. I love the title. It sucks me in. Tell me everything and how you brilliantly came up with that title.
Yeah, so maybe you should give up is not about giving up on your goals and dreams. Instead, it's about giving up holding on to everything that's stopping you from achieving them. Because over the last decade, from working with people in 15 countries, what I discovered is that there are 7 mental blocks that every single one of us struggles with that keeps us stuck and stops us from taking the actions we need to take to create the life we want, whether that's fear, comparing yourself to others, being too hard on yourself, or even putting off your happiness. Until you overcome these mental blocks, they're going to stop you from reaching your potential. And that's why maybe you should give up. It's all about taking a counterintuitive approach to overcoming them. It's all about figuring out why you're getting in your own way and what you really need to do to overcome it. And the reason why I went with the title, maybe you should give up, is it sounds so different to everything else in the industry. Like the whole self-help world is all about keep pushing, never quit. And for so many people, myself included, that's what keeps us stuck. We keep trying strategies that work over and over again. We keep holding on to things that we feel like will make us successful. And that's why it's all about giving people permission to actually recognize what's holding them back. So ultimately, it's a book about empowerment and about positivity and helping someone get out of their own way so that they can take control of their life.
Brilliant. I'm just going to say brilliant. I mean, you should see my house. It's filled with self-help books. And I was just like, oh my God. And
That's
I
the exact reaction I wanted.
And I knew where you were going to go with it, but I still think brilliant. Okay. Now I lost my train of thought. I was so excited about that. No, I won't.
I love the energy. It would have been funny if I came on there and I was like, oh, it's all about just giving up and accepting this is how life is. I don't think that would be very motivational though, but
I don't know. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, now I got my train of thought back. On your website, there are so many testimonials. I was wondering if you, even if you could have to change the names, could go through just one testimonial of somebody that had this block and what you did for them.
Yeah, so easiest one is actually one of the ones I uploaded recently. He won't mind me sharing his name because he says it in the video. There's one guy
Okay.
called Cody who came to me at a point where he recognized he was being the bottleneck in the business. He was the founder, he'd grown it to a certain level, but now as they were scaling, he was taking on a team and it was something he'd never done before. So he was very much getting in the way. He was holding up decisions, he was micromanaging, he was putting too much on his plate, and that was
Mm,
really stalling their growth. So when he came to me, we really need to figure out, okay, who's the next level version of him? Who's the leader who's not just working in the business, he's working on it, who's taking it to the next level? We then need to get him out of a reactive state. We need to look at how he delegated and managed his time, how he trusted his team, set the right expectations and boundaries, and really broke through a lot of the doubts and fears that he was
mm,
holding on to. We overcame all of that. He's now taken the business to 2 quarters in a row to record profits. They're scaling, they're taking on new products. Like they're absolutely thriving. And it's all because he stepped up to be the leader that he knew he could be.
mm.
So I'm really fortunate that I work with a very particular type of client. Like I said before, it's a person who's feeling overwhelmed. They're not performing at the level they know they could. They're
Mhm.
holding up the business's growth. So our focus is how do we break through that to get them to the next level?
Byron, as part of it, do you make sure that they carve out time for themselves so they don't get burnout? Is that part of what you do for them?
Yeah, because a lot of the time when you're an entrepreneur or a business leader, you've got so much on your plate that you try and cram so much in. And it often comes at the point that you have to sacrifice your health and looking after yourself. And that's why Cody says it in the video, like a really great example of he's managed to free up time because he's more effective in delegating and trusting his team. He's got back so many hours a week that he's actually got back into boxing. He's taking dance classes. He's having social time with his friends where he's actually leaving his phone behind and disconnected. So for me, it's all about finding that balance and harmony, because if you're not looking after yourself, it's going to directly impact your performance. And this is really where my skill set over the years of growing the business comes in, because of background of being a nutritionist and personal trainer and all the health side of it, I can
Mm,
help people optimize all those areas so that they can feel at their best. Because when you feel at your best, you perform at your best.
yeah.
And that's why you have to get that alignment, because if you're sacrificing your relationships and your health and looking after yourself, it's going to affect everything from your decision making to your focus to your productivity. So it's all intertwined and we have to get every aspect under control.
I'm so happy you're doing that. I'm so happy. And I'll tell you what, I'm thrilled for my people that are watching or listening. The biggest thing is that they realize they're not alone. I'm so glad that you're highlighting that every single one of them, that you work with is going through this, because I think they don't, not all of them, but many don't reach out for help because they think they should know already.
Yeah. It's really a big part of my message and the content that I put out there is trying to show people that they're not alone. Like I've lost count of how many application calls I've had with people where I've gone on their LinkedIn and it's all smiles. There was a guy a few months ago who went on his page and everything was awards they were getting. Just looked like everything was on top of the world. And he got on the call and he just started breaking down. He was like, to get to this point, like it's destroyed him. He's like, we're about to double in size again. He's like, I don't know if I've got it in me. But if you looked at him on paper, you'd be like, this guy's got it all together. And I see
Yeah.
this constantly with the clients I work with because
Yeah.
everyone's looking to them to solve their problems. They have all this pressure to deliver that they internalize and bottle it up because they don't want the external world to see that their internal state doesn't match the success that everyone else perceives. And I've lost count of how many conversations I've had where people come out of it and they're like, I can't believe I just shared that. Like, they're like, I've never told anyone that. And it's
Oh,
just like they've got the weight of the world on their shoulders. And that's why I try to be this force, even with my own life and sharing about the challenges I'm going through, just to show people like you're not alone. Like there's
yeah.
so many people who are struggling like you are right now. And I know knowing that doesn't make it easier. Like you still have the challenges, but it
Yeah.
just makes you feel a little less alone. Because
Yeah.
I
No,
think,
I think that's important.
yeah,
I think you're right. You still have the challenges, but it is comforting to go, I'm not the only one that feels this way. Yeah. Yeah. And I see it too, even with young people that I'll see, Byron, and on social media, it's the same thing. They look like they're having this happy life, but they're crumbling inside, and it's the same thing over and over again. I don't know why we feel like we're so alone. I guess I get part of it because you see a lot on social media, and the perception is everything is rosy.
You know, in my experience, it's partly because in the digital world, even though we're technically more connected than ever, we're more disconnected because everything's building a brand and putting on this image online of what your life looks like. And so many people are drawn in that they have to compete and show everyone else how amazing they're doing. And it just builds this comparison trap where everyone's trying to put on this facade. And that's why you have to recognize that people only show you what they want you to see. And that's why if you are looking at someone else's life and comparing it to yourself, you're essentially comparing what you're doing to someone else's highlight reel. And it's made even worse by the fact that if you go on Facebook or LinkedIn and scroll through, you're just seeing this never-ending feed of people just sharing the best parts of their days. Obviously, your life in comparison is going to seem less exciting. And this is why, for me, it's so important that you understand what's actually going on and you really just get a tunnel vision and start being more compassionate with yourself and being like, this is what I'm doing. What everyone else has got going on is irrelevant. Because the more you compare yourself, the worse you're going to feel.
Yeah, I like that. Byron, this has been awesome. I'm so glad we connected. But before we go, I have to ask you some fun questions about you. You ready?
Go
What's
for it.
your morning routine? What do you do in the morning to get your head in the game?
So my morning is actually not that glamorous. A lot of people think because I'm like a high performance coach, so I'm going to have this big stretched out routine full of like meditation and all of this stuff. Like I find for me, optimally, I get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, take my dog for a walk so I can get some fresh air, come in, plan my day and begin. Like my mornings are my most productive times. It's when I'm energized and focused. And that's why I found for me, that really works. That's when I can get my creativity done, all my content out, and it works for me. So I'm always a big advocate of telling people like you need to figure out what works for you. Some people need an hour-long morning routine to set them up. For me, it's 15 minutes to get my head in the game and get going.
I want to come and hug you. I'm so glad you said that because I was just having a huge, let's call it debate with someone. Like everyone's routine is so different. And by the way, and I'm just going to bring it up now because it made me think of this. Years ago, I wanted to study people that I thought exuded pure joy, right? So I took years to research them, and I owned gyms so I could watch them. And I studied and I interviewed them. And the secret sauce that I saw of across the board, every single one of these people that I felt exuded pure joy, they did something in the morning to get themselves in the head, their head in the game, but it was either 2 minutes or 2 hours. It was all so different. And it was everything from baking muffins to walking their dog. And I tell people, you don't have to meditate for 45 minutes in the morning or journal for 45 minutes or an hour. Not that it's wrong. Not that it's wrong, but it's not the only way.
Yeah. The best advice I'll give to anyone listening to this is test stuff and figure out what works for you. Because so many people look at really hyper successful people and they're like, if that's what they do in their morning, I have to do the same thing. But they have different commitments to you. They have different responsibilities. Like if you compare my morning routine to someone who's got kids, like I'm not a parent. Like I have different commitments in the morning. Like I don't have to rush around after loads of kids and have chaos. So I can start my day in a different way. But people just put it in a box. They're like, I need to do that to be successful. And they set themselves up for failure. And that's why I'm a big advocate of test different things, see what works for you, and then build something. Like, yes, take inspiration, but don't feel like you have to copy someone else.
Nope, not at all. And by the way, I teach journaling and meditation, and my routine is maximum 15 minutes in the morning. I mean, I do my coffee, but then I just do my little journaling. It's probably, I spend a couple minutes in my journal, because that's what I do. That's what I need. And then I do like you, I'm off and I'm going. So it's all different. All right. Favorite color?
I'm gonna go with blue. My girlfriend was asking me this the other day, and she's like, "What's your favorite color?" And I was like, "I don't know. Like, I like blue. I like red." I'm just like, "Yeah, let's go with blue," because that was the answer I gave her.
Well, you can put red too. I mean, blue, red. You could say it depends on the hour of what my favorite.
Yeah, I went with blue in the end because I was like, I find it calming and I like looking at water and relaxing. So I was like, let's go with blue.
All right. So over in the UK, what do you like doing over there? Like, where do you go? What do you like seeing? What are your hobbies?
So I'm a big advocate of just seeing new places. We make sure, because anyone who runs a business knows how easy it is just to get pulled into and just doing it 24/7. So one thing I've really struggled with over the years is work-life balance. So one way that I've combated that is I've figured out non-negotiables in my life. One of them is Adventure Day Saturdays, where we find somewhere new and we take a drive and we go and explore and we look for nice places to eat. And just, we're also big advocates of like traveling and just doing new things. Because for me, life is all about experiences. And if I do too much of the mundane and normal things too constantly, that's when I get a little bit bored. So I like changing my environments and just getting out there.
I like Adventure Saturday. I like that. And I love, because it makes you stay on track. Like, wait, I can't do that. It's Adventure Saturday. I love that. Okay. I have a friend, she and her husband 4 times a year, I'm not kidding you, they throw a dart at a map, and wherever the dart hits, no matter what, that's where they go.
I love that.
Yeah, and it could be some little town, or it could be like, it doesn't matter. Wherever the dart hits, I'd be like trying to aim where I wanted to go.
Like, yeah, somewhere in the Caribbean, somewhere sunny.
Yeah, and not there's anything wrong with it, but it landed. She was hoping to go to Italy, and she was trying for Italy, and it landed in Kansas. Nothing wrong with Kansas. It's a little different than Italy, you know. Okay. Shows. I know you read probably a lot, but do you like to watch any shows? Do you binge watch? Is there any?
This is actually something that might surprise you, but I'm quite a big TV watcher, because there's a lot of people in the self-help industry and who are like, if you watch TV, you're wasting your life and all of these things. But for me, it's one of the things that helps me unwind. Like, I don't watch 3 hours a night, but it's one thing that helps me switch off and relax. So yeah, I do like relaxing with a good series. Like, my favorite show of all time is Suits. So but yeah, I'm a big fan of anything like that's a drama or kind of a thriller, and kind of, I'm really into Succession at the moment. That's one of my big favorites.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what are you watching right now? I'm watching right now something that was probably on years ago. It's called Madam Secretary, and it probably was the series that was on like a long time ago. All right. Food.
I'm a big Mexican fan, but I'm also love Indian and Italian. Cooking's actually one of my passions. So that's one of the things I like to do at the end of a long day, is just cook a nice meal. I find it's a way to just disconnect and detach. And because of my health background, I like having food that's freshly prepared. So I'm always trying to find ways just to experiment and try new dishes. So yeah, anything like with a lot of flavor. So like Mexican, Indian are always go-to staples for us.
And do you have a workout routine? Because you said, you now really try to take care of yourself.
Yeah, I weight train 6 days a week.
Oh, okay.
Something going back a few years ago, exercise was something that I used to dread. Like, I always thought of myself, exercise was for people that I didn't want to be like, couldn't think of anything worse than stepping foot in a gym. It's like something that would never be part of my life. And it's actually something that the more I got into it, the more I found that I actually love it. Like, it's one of the stress relief things I really look forward to. So yeah, I work out like without fail 6 days a week. It's a big part of my routine in life.
All right. And besides your books, is there any books that you are reading right now, or that you go, hey, this is something you should check out?
So reading wise, it's a great question. Like, everything I'm reading at the moment is actually kind of finance based.
Oh.
I'm looking more of getting into investing and learning about the stock market. So that's really where I'm putting a lot of my attention. I spend so much time in the self-help and personal development world that I aim not to read that many books in that, just because otherwise mentally I never switch off. That's why I don't read business books before bed, because then it just gives me content and other ideas. So everything I'm reading at the moment is just primarily just on that aspect of my life and looking at what I'm doing kind of financially to get like all my investment in place.
Gotcha. All right, Byron, how can we find you? How can we purchase your books and look out? I know the one book is not out yet, but tell us everywhere we can find you.
Yeah, so the easiest place to find out more about me is byronmorrison.com. My new book, Maybe You Should Give Up, is available to order now anywhere you can get books, whether that's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. We're also giving some pretty cool bonuses to anyone who pre-orders a copy. So you can find out more about that on my website and just send me an email with a copy of the receipt, and you get the audio book and a video series and a load of other cool stuff. And I'm also really active on social media. So LinkedIn and Instagram are my main two platforms, but also TikTok and Facebook. If you search for author Byron Morrison, I put out daily videos and thought leadership pieces and aspects on everything from being more effective in your role to taking control of your life. So yeah, just search for Byron Morrison and I come up on Google or any other platform.
Cool. All right, Byron, before we check out here for my Let's Keep It Real people, is there anything we didn't get in that you want to tell them?
Yeah, the one piece of advice, I'm just knowing who your audience is, that I would just love to throw out here is, I know that everyone listening to this is probably their own harshest critic. And I know that it's a fantastic motivator. But one of the biggest things I've learned is if you're always being hard on yourself and beating yourself up, it's never going to lead to any real level of happiness and fulfillment. Because no matter what you do, you're always going to be able to do better or have done more. And that's why I'm not saying lower your goals and expectations. That's not the case at all. But if you don't learn some self-compassion to be able to cut yourself some slack, to know when you've done your best, you're never going to be able to take that pressure off yourself. So for me, it's all about really recognizing that you're never going to get to where you want to be. There's always going to be another level, more things you could be doing. And that's why you have to slow down. You have to really recognize when you're doing your best and just learn to enjoy the process. Because at the end of the day, life is long and you have a lot more time than you recognize. And when you learn to slow down and understand that happiness isn't going to come from some result in the future, it comes from the journey, and the journey takes place in the present. That's when the entire game will change for you. You can start challenging problems better. You can start embracing the journey and just feel more of life.
That's a good thing to end on, Byron. I love that. All right, my Let's Keep It Real people. Byron, I would really appreciate you sharing, liking, and rating it. It means the world to us. And until next time, you know what I'm going to say. Toodles. Thanks, Byron.